Hello, I'm Chiara Restuccia and I'm here to show you a project about learning and teaching languages in the modern society. The term glottodidactica was introduced for the first time by the illustrious Italian psycholinguistic Renzo Di Tone. It refers on the one hand to the educational activities that take place within an English course, better known as language teaching. On the other hand, it refers to scientific research activities that seek to investigate how a language is learned, what difficulties can be encountered in the learning process, and single out the psychological and environmental characteristics that make it possible to learn a second language, call it technically applied linguistics. Glottodidactics therefore combines research on learning everything that should be done to allow the learner to learn a new language. In this new science, developed at the end of the 20th century through European educational reforms, initially it was not seen as an innovative discovery by specialists in the field, but over time it has been widely re-evaluated. Starting from the 90s, in fact, among teachers the desires to transform language teaching into a psychodactic system emerged, where they began to take into account some factors that until then had been ignored, such as biological, cognitive, social, cultural, and motivational factors. In glottodidactics, we generally deal with the concept of both second language and foreign language. They are seen by scholars as two parallel lines that travel the same path without ever intersecting. They are, in fact, mistakenly confused. The term second language refers to a language that is acquired in an environment where there is a daily interaction, while a foreign language is learned through a conscious process as an instrument of daily interaction. In the foreign language, learning takes place through a teacher who, using scholar materials and tools, helps the students to learn the language, starting from the basics such as grammar or phonetics. The second language, on the other hand, is learned within the environment in which it is used. This new science has changed over the course of history, giving rise to new teaching methods. It has also been rearranged in chronological order and has continuously evolved. In order to understand the evolutionary process of language teaching, we need to take a step back towards the end of the 9th century. In this period, in addition to teaching ancient languages like Latin and Greek, living languages were also taught. The method was the same for both categories. The rational method, based mainly on the explanation of grammatical rules and translation tasks, since it thought that the control of grammar was equivalent to the control of the language. Thus, for the first time in the history of foreign language teaching, it was understood that it was necessary to propose didactic practice capable of acting the natural learning system, also in the school environment. The new perspective challenged the method of grammar translation, leading to great faith in scientific psychology. The emergence of this new specific perspective paved the way for the so-called direct method. It was the famous French anthropologist and surgeon Paul Broca who founded the discipline known as neuroscience, on the basis of the observation that those who had lost the ability to articulate sounds without having undergone any paralysis to the founding organs had the same type of destructive lesion. It is localized in the left frontal lobe of the left hemisphere and in the third left frontal ring road. The correlation between a specific area of the brain and physical function, the language, came to call it Broca. Later, the neurologist Karl Wernicke demonstrated that an injury to another area of the left hemisphere caused a disturbance in the understanding verbal messages, an area that came to know as Broca. After several decades of discussion, a turning point was reached thanks to the American psycholinguist Roger Sperry and his collaborators, who discussed the localizing theories. Their work on patients who had the two hemispheres surgically separated by cutting the corpus callosum made it clear that the two sides of the brain worked in a complementary way. From this point onwards began several studies that confirmed the hemispheric complementarity. Through the study of the split brain, they were able to confirm the specialization of the left hemisphere for linguistic function, but also highlighted the diversity of the two hemispheres in processing the same information. The term neuroscience had been used in the recent decades to refer to the study of the brain. The term neurolinguistic, which first appeared in 1935, refers to the study of how language is processed in the brain. Its aim was to understand and explain the neurological basis of language and to characterize the mechanism and process involved during the verbal activities. At the basis of neurolinguistics, there are three fundamental concepts: hemispheric complementarity, brain plasticity, and the critical period. Each of our actions involves the process of memory. We can remember past events and plan our future behavior only through this process. We owe the memory who we are. We don't know have a single memory but different ones. The human being would not be able to remember what he did during the week or what he ate yesterday if he did not resort to the long-term episodic memory, as he could not remember the concept stored if he did not use of long-term semantic memory, which is very important language. For many years, scholars considered the learner's brain as a tabula rasa and did not deal with the organization of memory. Thanks to the cognitivism, however, memory was placed at the center of physiological investigation. Every act of the memory presupposed the intention and the invention of the person who performs it, implying the collaboration between mind and body. Thanks to everyone for the attention.